Hello, listeners. This is Kat. Welcome back to Put Your Hands Up Podfics. This will be the start of a new fic reading entitled Fall Apart, Collect the Pieces. Here's the summary. Izuku has always been passionate about heroes. He writes extensive analysis about them and has world-class collections of memorabilia. It matters to him. He thought Ochako, his wife of 2 months and partner of 5 years, understood that. He thought all of his friends understood that. He was wrong. Or, after just 2 months of marital bliss, Ochako makes a decision to break Izuku's trust in pursuit of her picture-perfect life. Now they're all in for a horrible ride. This fic is 33 chapters long, with just over 81,000 words. With that being said, here's chapter 1. "Ochako," he called as he opened the door. He was fumbling with his keys as he tried to squeeze into the threshold, carry a large duffel, a backpack, and a paper shopping bag. "You home, honey?" He had gone on a joint agency undercover mission for a week, and he'd been homesick since day one. Hey, he was a newlywed, and his wife of 2 months was at home while he'd been in a sleeping bag with one of his sidekicks snoring beside him. He was glad to be home. He finally managed to kick the door shut behind him, towing off his shoes in the hall before trudging into the living room. He dropped his duffel bag by the sofa. "Ochako," he called again. He looked at the clock. He was still a little out of it since his sleep schedule had gone to shit while he was undercover. He'd slept on the ride back too, so it made sense that he was a bit disoriented. Ochako was still on patrol. He smiled. He couldn't wait to see her, but this meant he could take a nap before she showed up. Then he'd actually have enough energy to enjoy her company. He looked down at the paper bag in his hand with a smile, reaching inside to pull out the fabric box inside. Before he took a nap, he wanted to add something to his collection. Ochako didn't love the fact that he collected hero merch. She'd brought it up a couple of times, pointing out that it was a little juvenile, but it was important to him. His collection was kind of a masterpiece. He wasn't the most active collector, but the pieces he had were amazing. He hadn't added to it in years, but the items that he did have were well taken care of. Besides, he finally had the disposable income he needed to feed his hobbies. So while he didn't spend often, he felt more than comfortable with indulging when the right piece came along. In this box was the final piece to a commemorative All Might pin set that he'd been hunting for years. It was a little piece of history coming together, and he couldn't wait to see it as a set. He climbed the stairs with a giddy smile on his face, flipping open the lid of the box to inspect his new prize. He'd seen it by chance 3 days into his assignment, just sitting in the window of a pawn shop. Luckily, he'd seen it during his downtime. He pushed the door to his merch room open and looked up. His smile vanished. Where his collection once stood, shelves and display cases full of collectibles and his hero analysis notebooks contained in a temperature-controlled room. There was now a home theater. His stomach dropped to his knees. He stood in the doorway, shell-shocked. Then he felt the first drops of panic enter his bloodstream. The pin box still clutched in his hand, he ran to the nearest closet, searching through it and pulling items off the shelves. Where'd she put them? Where did it all go? She must have put them somewhere. He went through each room, heart racing. He pulled open every closet, cupboard, drawer, and crawl space, getting on hands and knees to search through the darkest corners and floating to inspect the highest shelves. That limited edition Silver Age All Might figurine was the last gift his dad ever gave him. The special edition comics were gifts from All Might's personal collection. Night Eye had left him the poster in his will. David Shield had given him the original blueprints to All Might's support gear. He'd gotten that trading card side by side with Kacchan. Some of the items were just rare and expensive, but some of them were memories made physical. Pieces of his heart rendered in paper and plastic from people who mattered to him. He couldn't find them. He couldn't breathe. And then there were his notebooks. His notebooks were more than just analysis. They served as journals, too, spanning from middle school to present day. There were details about One for All in there, about his quirklessness, about how Kacchan's bullying hurt him when he just wanted to be friends. Details about his personal life that were just that intensely personal. God, and the hero analysis, from old-school heroes who had long retired, to interesting notes about his contemporaries. Facts about their tactics and gear that could be lethal in the wrong hands. He tore the house apart, looking. He hadn't even taken off his costume yet. He couldn't find it. Any of it. He called Ochako. It went to voicemail. He called again. Then he called again. She was on patrol, so her phone was probably at her agency. Fuck. He called his closest person. He picked up on the first ring. "The fuck do you want, dork?" Kacchan drawled, sounding aloof with that familiar undercurrent of fondness that only his close friends could detect. "Kacchan," he sobbed. He didn't even know when he'd started crying. "What's wrong?" he demanded, aloofness gone and immediately on alert. "I need your help. I can't find any of it." Where are you? Katsuki demanded, concerned but firm. Oh, he knew that tone. He must be having a panic attack. Home, he gasped. I'll be there in 5, Kacchan promised. Sit on the couch. Deep breaths, loser. He sat and waited, brain working like a bullet train. His things, his most prized possessions, were gone. Things he'd collected over the past 20 years with tender loving care. He'd documented each piece, photographing and recording where and when he'd gotten them. He'd made sure to update his insurance provider when the value shifted. He barely went in that room lately, so busy he didn't have the time to appreciate the stuff that brought him joy. He'd only went in there now because he'd wanted to put the pin in the safest place he knew, to photograph it and put it in a display. He'd wanted to document its price and bask in the fact that he'd finally collected all the pins in the collection, only to find it all gone. Deku, Kacchan called, letting himself in. He came in from the foyer a minute later, looking windswept. Did you fly here? Izuku asked, sounding dull around the edges. You're not supposed to do that. You're panicking, Kacchan replied seriously, striding over to him to sit on the coffee table. Fuck the law. Izuku's lip twitched, and for half a second he genuinely thought he was going to laugh. Instead, that twitch turned into a tremble, and that tremble turned into bawling. It's all gone, he sobbed. I can't find it anywhere. It's gone, Kacchan. What's gone? He asked. Grasping his hand, Izuku clutched it like a lifeline. Everything in my display room, he gasped, eyes wild. All of it. My entire collection, all my notebooks. Kacchan was up a second later, not dropping his hand, so Izuku was forced to stand and follow him. Hand in hand, they approached the display room again. Izuku dug his heels in. He didn't want to see it. He wanted to look for his collection. Kacchan held fast. Izuku was grateful. His hand was grounding. What the fuck? Kacchan breathed, looking around the room wide-eyed. Gone, he agreed. The home theater that stood, where arguably the most extensive collection of hero merch had once stood, was pretty. Large, comfy lounge sofas, a cute pastel popcorn machine, cushy pillows and cozy blankets, and a large flat-screen TV. He hated it. His tears came faster. There was only one logical explanation for this. It's not like a robber would steal his most valuable possessions and leave a home theater behind. She said it was childish, he cried. Katsuki gripped his hand tighter. A waste of time and money. You think she got rid of your collection? Katsuki asked seriously. Without fucking asking? Maybe, he hiccuped, voice catching in his throat. Maybe she just put it away, but I can't find any of it, he whimpered. I've been looking everywhere. I'll help, Kacchan promised. It was like a breath of fresh air after sitting in a sauna, crisp and cleansing. Kacchan was always there for him. Hey, if it's here, we'll find it. Izuku's lip trembled. What if it's not? He asked. What if she sold it all? Then I'd kick her ass, he snarled. Izuku shook his head, but Kacchan stopped him. That collection means a lot to you, fuckhead. If she got rid of it without asking you, it was disrespectful as fuck, and she deserves what she gets. He hesitated, but nodded. He wasn't just sad. He was starting to get mad. He hoped that the person he married, the person who supposedly loved him, hadn't betrayed his trust. They spent the next hour searching. It was a big house with lots of nooks and crannies. Izuku had bought it when he cracked the top 10, hoping to have a place where all the important people in his life could fit comfortably when they happened to be in the same place at the same time. The only place in that house that was his was that room, and it had been violated. His bedroom wasn't even completely his. They tore the house apart, and at the end of it, they came up dry. Izuku folded into himself on the couch, pressing the heels of his palms into his eyes. He hadn't stopped crying since he'd called Kacchan. This is totally fucked, Kacchan growled, back to grasping his hand. They were going through his records now. The little laptop that Izuku kept under his bed was on the coffee table. It's the only thing that was left to prove his collection had even existed. He'd been planning to scan his notebooks next month, when he had a little time off. They were gone, too. It made him sick to his stomach. He'd have to file an insurance claim and contact the Hero Commission. He'd have to give them as many details from those notebooks as possible. He heard the front door open. Deku, are you home, baby? Chapter 2. Izuku felt Kacchan tense up beside him and gripped his hand tighter to keep him in place. She rounded out of the foyer, eyes landing on them. Her eyes widened as she took in his face. She cooed. Aw, baby, what's wrong? Did the mission go badly? Where's his collection? She froze, eyes landing on Katsuki. Huh? My collection, Izuku repeated for him. The collection I've spent 20 years building. Where is it? She rocked back on her heels, suddenly frustrated. Are you seriously crying about that? I was really worried. Where is it? I told you how I felt about it, she said, rolling her eyes. It was a waste of space and money. Where is it? It's not like you ever went in there anyway, she shrugged, heading back to hang up her coat. At least now the space is being used for something practical. You're not answering his fucking question, Katsuki snapped. Where the fuck is his collection? She sighed, squaring her shoulders before turning back to them. Anything I could find on Weebay for a price reference I sold. I donated the rest of it. Izuku's heart dropped. He felt Katsuki's hand heat up with rage, but he didn't care. She'd sold and donated his most treasured possessions. You better be ready to fucking buy it all back, you fucking bitch. I'm not buying it back, she scoffed. I just got rid of it. It was just enough to pay for the home theater. Come on. Think of how nice it'll be when we have people over. That's what the fucking living room is for, Izuku yelled. You had no right to sell my things. She scowled, officially angry. Your things? She yelled back. She waved her hand in his face, flashing the ring. What's mine is yours, remember? You live in my house, he snarled. Remember the prenup you signed? My assets remain my assets. Fuck, I've never been so glad that my mom convinced me to get one. She flinched back. You'd bring up our prenup over some fucking toys and comics? Those toys and comics were worth over 100 million yen, Katsuki snarled, low and furious. Rare, valuable shit. They can't be found on fucking Weebay. Some of it has to be sold through special auctions to reach its actual value. She paled. You spent that much on junk? She demanded. Katsuki made a lunge at her, but Izuku held him back. No, I didn't. A lot of them were gifts, he said, his tone nearly despondent. Stuff that All Might gave me. Stuff my dad gave me. Stuff that Night Eye left me in his will. Her face softened. Deku, she uttered, finally sounding somewhat contrite. She stepped forward, he flinched back. You shut the fuck up, Katsuki snapped. That's just the sentimental stuff. Then there's the stuff I spent months hunting down, the stuff I found in thrift shops and waited hours in line for, stuff that I haggled and traded for, stuff that's been out of production for decades. That's what I meant by a waste of time, she cried. We barely have any free time together, and you spend half of it chasing down useless crap. I told you that it was important to me, he said, tears running down his face. You should have told me you wanted to spend more time together. You didn't have to break my trust and go behind my back. How much did you get from the collection? Katsuki demanded. Why are you even here? She snapped. Get your own fucking marriage, Bakugo. How much, Ochako? How much did that stupid unnecessary home theater cost? He snapped, holding Kacchan back again. She swallowed. Just over 2 million yen, she said tersely. He wanted to throw up. He'd be able to buy back the posters with that, maybe, or the set of first edition comics from All Might's Silver Age, not both. He might be able to buy back the figurine his dad gave him. That was only if the people who bought them wanted to sell. What about my notebooks? He asked. Katsuki placed a hand on his shoulder in a show of support, warm and grounding. She shifted nervously. Those old things? She asked, trying for casual. I recycled them. They were falling apart. Izuku collapsed back onto the couch, face in his hands. His stomach was churning with horror, and he felt cold with panic. You're a fucking psychopath, Katsuki snarled. You better hope we can track those damn things down, bubble bitch. God, could you mind your own fucking business? No, he's right, Izuku interrupted. Get ready to dumpster dive, honey. Better hope we can find those notebooks. They're just journals, she protested. I read a few of them. They were basically just middle school rambling. And detailed, in-depth hero analysis, Katsuki interrupted. Shit tons of details about our peers, about Deku, including facts about costumes and support gear and fighting styles, essays about details of heroes' personal lives and how it affects their work. She blanched. Why would you keep those here? She yelled. If they've got that much sensitive information, why would you leave them unguarded? He scoffed, bitter and derisive. Unguarded? I'm the number 6 hero. My house isn't unguarded. For my own protection, I have a security system that's a step down from Tartarus. Remember the biometric doorknob? The security cameras that have facial recognition? The security code that changes weekly? Hatsume designed my security herself, he said. His tone sounded achingly wretched. You needed security clearance to move in here. Did you ever consider that? My possessions are safe here because only people I trust are allowed in, or at least they should have been. She looked a little sick. You should have told me. You should have asked, he snapped. You should have asked before getting rid of my things. You should have asked why it was important to me. You don't have to fucking explain yourself in order to have things you enjoy, Katsuki snapped. Izuku could feel his anger simmering. You supposedly love him, don't you? You should have let him keep the shit that makes him happy, even if you don't understand it. Would you mind your own business? She snapped. This is between me and Deku. Why are you even here? He's here because I was upset, and he helped me search the house for my collection, Izuku said. And if you think there's anything between us anymore, you're insane. She flinched. What are you talking about? I want him here. I don't want you here. Get out. You can't be serious. I'll go through the house and pack your things. I don't trust you to take shit that isn't yours if I let you do it yourself, he said, anger growing. A lawyer will contact you tomorrow. Expect to meet with the commission, too. We're married, Deku. Married people work out their differences. Like you worked out your differences with him? Katsuki asked, his voice dripping with disdain. Bullshit. You heard him. Leave. I live here. This is my house, too. It's not, Izuku snapped. The mortgage is in my name. I bought everything in it. Whatever I didn't buy, I'll send to you, if I don't decide to sell it to recoup some of my losses. Her crap can't pay for that, Katsuki snorted. If we can't get your shit back, just sue her for the value listed with the insurance company. She paled even further. They're just toys. You'd sue me over toys? You'd throw our marriage away. It wasn't much of a marriage if you couldn't show me some basic decency. You wouldn't even listen to me. I told you what I thought. And I told you it was important to me. And instead of talking about it more or bringing it up again, you threw it out when I wasn't there to stop you. You knew how I'd react, and you picked a time when I wasn't there to do it anyway. Now get out. Or I'll drag you out by your hair, Katsuki threatened, stepping in front of him. Ochako scowled at Katsuki before looking over his shoulder at Izuku. Her gaze softened, looking like condescending pity. It turned his stomach. I'm sorry you're hurting now. I'll stay with my parents for a bit. Call me when you're ready to talk about this rationally, okay? Izuku grabbed the back of Katsuki's shirt, curling his fingers into the fabric to keep himself calm. He didn't say anything, and Ochako let out an exasperated sigh before turning back toward the door, like he was being infantile, like he was the one at fault. Get bent, bitch, Katsuki snapped at her retreating back. She turned back, a malicious grimace in place. Enabling him won't make him love you, Bakugo. Katsuki flinched at that, and his entire body went tense. I'm not enabling him. I'm supporting him, and if you can't tell the fucking difference, you never deserved him. She looked like she wanted to say something else. Instead, she left quietly, taking their marriage with her. All right, listeners, this concludes Chapter 2 of Fall Apart, Collect the Pieces. Chapter 3 will be next. I hope you guys enjoy this so far. Let me know your thoughts and reactions to the first 2 chapters here, and as always, thank you so much for listening.